During the time we dated, Michael was so kind. However, after marriage, he became a completely different person. He brags about working at a top-tier company, and he lords it over me and our children every single day. I wanted to continue working after we got married, but Michael and my father-in-law ordered me to quit. I reluctantly became a stay-at-home mom. One evening, Michael looked at me and laughed. "You've aged, haven't you? You looked better when we first got married. Probably because you're just lounging around as a housewife. Using the kids as an excuse to be lazy, it's no wonder you're going downhill as a person. I can't take it anymore. Let's get a divorce." Without hesitation, I shouted. Michael responded with a smirk. "You can raise the 4 kids by yourself. I ain't gonna help at all from now on." I almost laughed. Has he ever really helped before? I'll be relieved when you noisy folks are gone. I think I'll go to the attorney's office. You can have your say for now. Enjoy it while you can. My name is Sarah, a 50-year-old housewife. Introduced by our parents, I met Michael and we've been married for 30 years. Michael's verbal abuse has grown worse every year, and it troubles me. When we dated, he wasn't like this. After graduating from college, Michael often talked about his job at a top-tier company during our dates. I didn't understand all the technical jargon, but I felt he was serious and passionate about his work. Having lost my dad at a young age and witnessing my mom's struggles, I wanted to marry Michael and provide a sense of security for my mom. A significant point was that he didn't have a mother. Michael told me that his parents divorced when he was a teenager and he was raised by his father. Not having a real dad, I was excited to have a father figure in my life, even if we weren't related by blood. I had high hopes. But those hopes were shattered shortly after our wedding. I found out that Michael was completely controlled by his father. Many of Michael's relatives owned businesses or restaurants, and his father was an entrepreneur. Michael truly respected his father. I got into a prestigious university and a top-tier company because I always listened to my dad. He would often say with pride, "After divorcing my mom, my dad raised me while growing his business. He's an incredible person." Yes, he seems like it. When we have a son, I'm gonna make sure he gets a proper education and follows in my footsteps. I worked in my dad's company for a while, but had to change jobs due to an injury. So, if we have a son, I want him to be the successor. Don't get ahead of yourself, I'm not even pregnant yet. Before we had children, I could listen to this and just laugh it off. But as I gave birth to daughters one after the other, Michael and his father became increasingly cold toward me. When our 3rd daughter was born, my father-in-law visited the hospital room, gave a disdainful look at the sleeping baby, and clicked his tongue. "Another girl, huh? Mike, you sure picked a dud of a wife." "I'm sorry, Dad. Sarah, if the next one is a girl, we're getting a divorce. We don't need a wife who can't produce an heir." After a difficult delivery and having had a C-section, I was devastated by their words and couldn't stop crying. I considered divorce at that very moment. But then, when our son, Tom, was born, my father-in-law adored him. He'd take Michael and Tom out to animated movies, buy Tom toys, and give him allowance, leaving out the daughters. This puzzled Tom and upset the girls. Every time I slightly burned dinner or left a speck of dust after cleaning, Michael would exaggerate his frustration. "If this was a job, you'd be fired by now. Must be nice to be a woman, getting taken care of. I wish I could just laze around and play with the kids all day." Every time he said this, it really ticked me off. I wanted to keep working, but just after we got married, I was ordered by Michael and my father-in-law. "You can do a wife's job perfectly, right? If you're gonna slack off, quit that desk job. Yeah, if you can't do household chores and take care of me properly, you're not fit to be a wife. We can live on my salary alone, so you don't need to work." I was taken aback, wondering what era these guys were living in. But I didn't want any trouble with my husband and father-in-law so early in our marriage, so I obeyed. Later, when Tom started elementary school, I tried to re-enter the workforce as a full-time employee. Still, I was turned down everywhere I applied. If you have 4 kids, it seems you might take off frequently, like if one of them gets sick. That was pretty much the reason everywhere. Left with no other option, I became a stay-at-home mom. Michael treated me like a servant, always finding fault and criticizing me as an incompetent housewife. Michael, citing his busy work schedule, dumped all household chores and child-rearing on me. Being a stay-at-home mom, I didn't mind taking on household duties. But even when I was under the weather or sleep-deprived after childbirth, he never once showed compassion or empathy. Lately, I've been losing sleep because the baby cries at night. You have tomorrow off, right, Michael? Could you watch him for just one night?
Huh? Tomorrow's my day off, you know? Don't ruin my precious day. Taking care of a baby is a mother's job, isn't it? Just do it.
Back when I was struggling with only about 2 hours of sleep a night, I asked Michael, who was laughing out loud while watching a movie with a beer in his hand, and that's how he yelled back at me. On another day, he told me, "You want to talk about the kids? Act your age and decide on your own. You've already raised 3, haven't you? Don't rely on others." And if he ever came home to find the kids' toys scattered about, he'd immediately turn grumpy. When I come home tired and the house is a mess, it makes me not want to come home at all. You're at home all day, right? Shouldn't it be clean? I'm sorry. Tom was fussy, and preparing dinner was challenging. I'll clean up now. As I started picking up the toys, Michael's sarcastic remarks rained down on me.
The reason Tom is so spoiled is because you're not firm enough with him. You really are a failure. You're not fit to be a mother.
Spoiled? I wondered. Tom is only 5, of course, he's going to be assertive. But such comments felt like a stab to the heart. Hey, don't make that sulky face. It's ruining my appetite. It's annoying. Go to another room with the kid. Sarah, our 8th grader, who had been watching, glared at Michael.
Dad, how can you say that when you're eating the meal Mom made? Huh? You're a girl, and you're talking back to your father? If you've got a problem, just leave.
Natalie, don't talk to your dad like that. Let's go upstairs. I soothed Natalie and took the younger kids upstairs with me. Once we closed the door to our room, Sarah vented her frustration.
Mom, why don't you stand up for yourself? Isn't it hard hearing him say those things? Why not just get a divorce?
I'd love to, but leaving with 4 kids would take a lot of courage.
Once I'm in high school, I can earn money from a part-time job. Would that still not be enough?
I gave Natalie a weak smile. Thank you. I appreciate the thought. I gently stroked Sarah's head, and she became quiet, her mouth turning downward. It seems Natalie, at her young age, feels that the relationship between her parents is beyond repair. So, on days when I had no plans for myself, I actively took care of the younger kids. Michael is a father too, after all. I wish he'd spend time with his children, but he always treats them as a nuisance and complains they're the source of his stress. Whenever he hears the children's voices on the weekends, he grumbles. I have a headache, I feel nauseous. And orders me. Take them somewhere. Despite his clear dislike for kids, when we visit his parents' home, he pretends to adore Tom just to show his father that he values the family heir. One weekend, as usual, Michael woke up in the afternoon and blurted out to me as I was having lunch with the kids. Can't you see I'm exhausted? Take the kids out somewhere. I'm gonna go out for drinks with a colleague in the evening, so you can come back by then. I get it. By the way, our living expenses have been decreasing over the past year. Can we get back to the original amount? I asked hesitantly, and Michael's eyes widened in anger. $300 for groceries and living expenses should be enough. You're a housewife, manage the budget better. Can't you even do that without a high school degree? $300 is nowhere near enough. You've been working overtime and on weekends a lot lately, so your salary must have increased. Why are you reducing our living expenses? When I voiced my concerns, Michael became infuriated.
Enough. How I use my salary is my business. How dare you argue with me? Who do you think provides for this family?
Realizing I couldn't reason with Michael anymore, I gave up. I couldn't rely on him any longer. While the kids were at school, I studied, got a certification, and secretly started working from home. After some time, one evening, Michael came home reeking of alcohol and laughed when he saw me.
Geez, Sarah, I thought you were some old lady at first.
Hey. You drink too much.
Leave me be. But seriously, you've aged. You looked better when we got married.
I felt my blood boil. Due to the budget cuts, I had switched to cheaper cosmetics, and I hadn't bought new clothes for the past year. On the other hand, he frequently gets new suits and ties, goes out drinking every night to treat his subordinates, and buys branded shoes and watches. Clutching my fists and shaking with anger, I retorted.
I'd love to dress up too, but you won't give me the money, Michael. Don't blame others. Maybe you're just aging fast because you're just lazing around as a stay-at-home mom.
Michael mocked loudly.
You always seem to be relaxing, lacking any urgency. You use the kids as an excuse to be lazy, no wonder you're falling apart.
My anger was so intense that I felt dizzy. Who was it that insisted I become a stay-at-home mom when I wanted to continue working?
That's it. Let's get a divorce.
I blurted out. Michael looked shocked for a second, but then smirked.
Fine by me. I'm honestly tired of seeing your gloomy face.
He casually added.
But you're gonna raise those 4 kids on your own. Don't expect any help from me.
I almost laughed. Has he ever really helped? Weren't those kids always my responsibility?
Thinking of a life without those noisy brats makes me feel relieved.
Feeling it was all absurd, I headed for the front door without replying. I think I'll go to the attorney's office. Turning my back to Michael, I smiled defiantly. Enjoy your freedom while you can. Make the most of it.
Sure about this? Don't come regretting later. Think you can handle 4 kids on your own? You've always relied on me.
As I urged the kids and started packing our things to move, he kept taunting in a mocking tone.
Your mother's working, but it's gonna be hard for an old lady to support all 5 of you. Gonna end up broke, all of you. And who's gonna hire you with kids as an excuse?
Actually, I've started working from home. I have savings from before we were married, and if we're not extravagant, we can manage.
Huh? If you started a job, why didn't you tell me, Sarah?
I always said I was too tired, or it was too loud with the kids. You never really listened to me. Well, whatever. You're probably making less than me anyway. Don't come crying to me for help. As Michael spat out those sarcastic remarks, I silently packed my things into cardboard boxes. The movers will come to pick up the boxes in 3 days. Just leave them as they are. And don't forget the divorce papers. Got it. Do whatever you want. After calling the movers, I grabbed only my valuables and some clothes, and drove to my parents' house. For now, I planned to stay at my parents' place and look for a new house once things settle down. I had briefly explained to the kids that we were getting a divorce, but elaborated on the situation during the drive.
I'm sorry it's so sudden, but you'll be transferring to a new elementary school next week. I'm really sorry. Yay! We love Grandma. Can't wait. It's not that far with the bus, we can still hang out with our friends. It's okay.
Trying to cheer me up, my kids acted more excited than they probably felt, nearly bringing tears to my eyes.
You won't be living with Dad anymore, aren't you going to miss him?
Not really. I mean, Dad seems to dislike us, right? Tom chimed in. He always yells at us when he's home on weekends. Says we're loud and annoying. He never plays with us or listens to us. We didn't like being with him. Yeah, we all felt that way, Mom. Nodding in agreement, my kids made me feel even more guilty. I should have made the decision to divorce earlier. When I called and explained the situation to my mom, she was shocked and saddened. Whenever Michael visited my parents' house during holidays, he acted like a good husband and father. So, my mother believed we were happily married, making this news even more heartbreaking for her. Once the kids were asleep at my parents' place, my mother spoke to me.
Sarah, you can stay here as long as you want. We can help with living expenses.
Thank you. But I'll be okay. Can you recommend a good lawyer?
Of course. I'll arrange an appointment. Let me know if you need any other help.
Thanks, Mom. Her reassuring words warmed my heart. 6 months after the divorce, as the kids and I were starting to adjust to our new lives, I returned home from shopping to find Michael waiting outside the gate. His hair, now streaked with gray, was unkempt and dark circles marred his eyes. He lunged at me as soon as he saw me, but I brushed him off coldly. Who are you?
Come on, don't do that. It's me, your husband.
I don't have a husband. What do you want, ex-husband? Pushing him away, I asked. Michael, nearly hysterical, started shouting.
They kicked me out of the house. What the hell?
It wasn't out of the blue. You should have received multiple notices about the rent. It's only natural they'd evict you if you ignored them.
Why should I pay?
You were living there. Hearing the commotion, a middle-aged neighbor peeked out her door.
Sarah, is everything okay? Should I call the cops?
No, it's okay. It's just my ex-husband. The woman gave Michael a sharp look and furrowed her brows. Ah, that guy. Sarah, if anything happens, let me know. She said, then disappeared into the house.
What's she been saying about me?
Come on in, we're causing a scene. Ignoring his question, I ushered Michael inside. As soon as we got into the living room, Michael slouched on the couch, gulping down the tea I'd served, then returned to the topic.
That house, it was bought by your mom, right?
Yes.
But it's under your name, Michael. 'Cause you said it'd be embarrassing if it was under your wife's name.
Michael tilted his head as if unsure. Was that so?
But at the time, you, being just a regular employee, couldn't afford the mortgage payments. So, my mom had to transfer money into your account every month.
Ah, right. But if she suddenly stops, we're gonna be in a fix, aren't we? Aren't you smart enough to understand that? I held my forehead, sighing. Who's the dumb one here?
In what world would a mom continue to pay her divorced daughter's ex-husband's mortgage?
Michael frowned.
Your mom's loaded, isn't she? If she's got the money, she can pay up. Isn't it family's duty to help each other out in times of need? Who was it that pushed me away, telling me not to rely on others when I needed advice on childcare? And by the way, aren't you a manager at a big company? Why are you so short on cash?
Pressed, Michael stumbled over his words. Well, you know. I'd been treating my subordinates. Boosting their morale is an important responsibility of a superior.
You cut down on our household expenses for that? And didn't the period when our living costs decreased coincide with your increased overtime and weekend work?
Michael looked a bit uneasy at my pointing it out. Work got busier, and I had to establish a strong rapport with them to keep their motivation up. Oh, interesting.
You're cold to your own family but warm to your subordinates.
They're more endearing than you guys, you know.
Really?
Anyway, I have a suggestion.
If you got kicked out of your home, how about staying at a motel? I've got some vouchers for a hotel run by my mom's friend.
Michael's eyes widened.
Really? You'd give them to me?
I have a bunch, so I can share a few.
Generous of you. I'll get things sorted by this weekend, so that'll be good.
All right then. Taking the motel vouchers with a gleeful grin, Michael left in high spirits. All right, all is set. That weekend night, while the kids and I were watching animal videos in the living room, the doorbell rang. Opening the door, I found Michael and my father-in-law. To my astonishment, they barged into the living room without a word. Seeing the kids engrossed in the TV, Tom shouted angrily.
You're wasting time with this nonsense. This is why y'all remain immature.
His thunderous voice shattered our peaceful weekend mood, and the kids teared up. Disturbing our family time, Tom now directed his anger at Michael.
Michael, are you really gonna leave Tom with this woman? What about the plan for our heir?
I want her here to raise all 4 kids and let her experience hardship. I'll make sure she realizes how much she's taken my earnings for granted. Michael stated defiantly. If you want an heir so badly, then find yourself a younger and more submissive wife and have another child. Fine then. Just find your next wife quickly. Listening to their conversation, I felt sick to my stomach. They still saw a wife as nothing more than a tool to produce children. What do you two want here? With a malicious grin, Michael said. We're here to claim damages. What? You've neglected your duties as a wife, always prioritizing the kids. Because of you and the children, I couldn't get proper rest on weekends, feeling all stressed out. So, I'm demanding $10,000 as compensation.
I agree with what Michael's saying. Isn't it natural for a wife to prioritize her husband over her children? Neglecting to care for your husband? She clearly lacks a sense of responsibility as a wife.
It took me a while to understand what Michael was saying. I thought he was joking, but seeing his intimidating father-in-law accompanying him, it seems he was serious. I felt a headache coming on. I wanted to pat myself on the back for enduring so many years with such a person. As I was contemplating how to respond, my mother appeared at the open living room door.
Well, what a commotion,
she said in a calm tone. Behind her stood a man in a suit. As expected, my mother had brought a lawyer with her.
Mom,
Relieved, I glanced at my father-in-law, who was now pale and shaking. He seemed completely different from the aggressive person he was earlier. "Hello. Dad, explain the situation to her." "Dad?" Michael looked equally shocked at the sudden change in his father's demeanor. With the support of my allies, I regained my composure and went to the bedroom to retrieve a large envelope. I asked Natalie to take the kids upstairs, and once only the adults remained, I spread out the contents of the envelope on the living room table. "It took a while to get the lawyer's schedule, Mom.
Sorry to keep you waiting. My husband just arrived. Would it be okay to discuss alimony, property division, and child support here and now?"
"What?" Looking puzzled, I explained to Michael. "The private investigator said it was easy to track you since you checked into the hotel I recommended. You were being affectionate in the parking lot, so he got a lot of two-shot pictures." As I spread out the photos proving his infidelity, Michael was lost for words. After regaining his senses, he began to shout.
"You set me up by having me stay at that hotel? That's low. I don't think someone who's been cheating for over a year should be saying that."
I also placed our joint bank account book on the table.
"I can't believe you gave more than $10,000 to that woman.
And here you were, being stingy with the household money.
Telling me to respect you because you're a manager at a big company, but you're the worst as both a husband and a father. What's wrong with spending my own salary on myself? Right, Dad?"
After a long silence, my father-in-law muttered.
"So it was Michael who was cheating, not Sarah?"
"Yes, that's right.
This woman is making a big deal out of a simple affair. She's truly insufferable."
With a smirk, Michael was met with a sharp glare from his father.
"You big liar!"
My startled self inquired. What exactly did you hear?" With a bitter expression, he explained.
"Sarah was cheating, neglecting the kids and housework, and throwing everything onto me. On top of that, she ran away from home saying she was gonna take the kids and divorce. Or so."
"What? That's all a lie. If you want, I have audio evidence of Michael being affectionate with his mistress, and him verbally abusing me and the kids. Would you like to hear it?"
"No need. Just like his mother, what a hopeless guy."
Mutterings of frustration leaked from my father-in-law's mouth. And then, after a moment of apparent hesitation, he apologized to both my mother and me.
"Sarah, I'm truly sorry for believing my foolish son without checking the facts. I hope you can forgive me." "Hey Dad, what's gotten into you? Why are you groveling to them? Apologizing to women like this? It's embarrassing, cut it out."
Michael grumbled, and his father hastily explained. "Listen, you should apologize too. Sarah's mother is a huge benefactor to our family."
"Huh? Didn't you hear from your uncle? Remember when his company was on the verge of bankruptcy last year?"
Come to think of it, Sarah's mother acquired his company last year and became the new CEO. Thanks to her, they managed to recover. If she pulls out her investment now, even our group companies will be hit hard. Realizing the gravity of the situation from his father's words, Michael's previously arrogant face turned pale, and he knelt beside his father.
I'm so sorry. It's okay. I wouldn't ruin Michael's uncle's company over something like this. But, Michael, you'll have to take responsibility."
With an angelic smile, my mother revealed.
"I heard the woman you cheated with is your subordinate? I know the CEO of your company, so I've informed him about this. Starting next week, you'll be transferred to a remote island. It's a shame, especially after you worked so hard to become a manager." "What?"
"Well, do your best at work, all right?" When Michael looked up, he sniffled and started crying like a little boy. He had it coming. I felt refreshed as I looked down at him. Later, with a lawyer present, we proceeded with the divorce process. A completely dejected Michael agreed to pay back in full the amount I proposed, as well as the savings from our joint account that he had misused. My mom, true to her word, informed Michael's boss about the affair through a mutual friend. His boss, known for being a dedicated family man, was furious. Michael's mistress resigned voluntarily, and Michael was transferred to a remote branch in Alaska. When the mistress found out Michael was no longer on the fast track, she dumped him quickly. Michael tried to bounce back at the branch, but due to the reason for his transfer, he became the subject of gossip and eventually couldn't stand it, so he quit the company. Michael had accumulated a massive debt from paying me back, and with monthly child support payments, he's been working multiple part-time jobs from morning till night. Since his father-in-law disowned him, he couldn't rely on anyone and is said to live alone in a dimly lit apartment. On the other hand, his father became unpopular among relatives after angering my mom, who is a CEO. Additionally, because of his abusive behavior, his subordinates rebelled, eventually causing his company to go under. Now, he works as a waiter in a restaurant, often being scolded by the younger manager. While Michael was having his affair, I saved up money from my remote job and used it as a down payment to buy a second-hand house, moving in with my kids. Although my mom, who had cut off financial support to Michael, offered to buy back the house for us, I didn't want to return because of the unpleasant memories. Now that the kids are no longer connected to Michael and their grandfather, they look noticeably happier and more relaxed. Every long weekend, we visit my mom's house. Helping her out, cooking meals together, and chatting has become our recent pleasure. Now, I'm focusing on my remote work, but once Tom grows up a bit, I'm gonna look for a full-time job again. From now on, I want to live happily with my 4 children, occasionally relying on my mom for support.